for all the homeboys that couldn't get their happy home. Long as one of us got it, some of us got it. Stay down for your peoples. Hold on. Look, now we've been kicking it for quite some time. Remain beside me through my trials in this life of crime. We done fought so many times, I forgot to count. I never hit you, not a coward, rather leave your house. Remember back in December when we was tight, sipping Alizé and Cristal wildin' every night. In my bedroom, promise that I commit to you soon. Time kiss me every time you see me step inside the room, straight out the hood. We promise to be good to each other, plus I love you, so I know you gon' make a good mother. Just try to understand if I change in time, it's only cause I never owned anything that's mine. So I'm trying, you can stay with my mama, but keep the drama to a low. Never call the police, I never call you bitch a hoe. We were all born hungry in this world alone, and got a happy home. Turn this out to no, I don't, it's true, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't want anybody else but you. I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't to a happy home. No, I don't, it's true, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't want anybody else but you. Going through hard times, ghetto child of mine. I wonder if you have to suffer for your father's crimes. To be honest, it's a hard road. Just keep your faith in God, knowing you'll be scarred though. Look at him walking and talking to little child with my eyes and mouth. Father, watch over little seeds, help me guide them out. Had to change my whole lifestyle. Married my baby's mama, made her my wife now. I'm trying hard, y'all. Maybe in time I'll be a better man. Watching the older couples handle it like veterans. Show me the meaning of forever, and together we rise. If it would help our child grow, then together we die. Why? Question my love is so easy to see. Without my family, all I'm left with is a shadow of me. After all the arguments and the nights alone, now it's time to live a good life inside a happy home. Turn this out to no, I don't, it's true, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't want anybody else but you. I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't to a happy home. No, I don't, it's true, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't want anybody else but you. Inside a happy home. Happy home.
Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun. And it's been the ruin of many poor boy. God, I know that I'm one. Well, my mother, you see, she was a tailor, and she sewed my new blue jeans. And my father, now he was a gambling man down in New Orleans, where the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk. And the only time that he's satisfied is when he's on a drunk. Oh, mother, well, tell your children not to do what I have done. And spend your lives in sin and misery. The house of the rising sun. Where there is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun. It's been the ruin of many poor boy. And God, I know I'm one. There's a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know I'm one.
Hey, I love Chinese like traditional music like this. Oh my god. Let's get it out of the way, get it out of the way. It says fuck the system, pardon my formality. It does not just say fuck. So let's get that out of the way. Okay. Now that we're clear. Sup, dudes? That is lovely. Luna. So we got some potential copyright infringement. I thought I'd see what happens, I guess. Because they're technically in the SoundCloud copyright free. Free to use, no restrictions. So it should be functional, but it might be like, that's a song. And especially House of the Rising Sun. The other one I think was like something they created on their own. Okay, there's a lot of stuff to go into. I don't know what to talk about first. I just have been. It's been like a week or more since I've done anything. I have a lot to talk about. Don't know where to begin and how to make sure I actually talk about it all. So I decided I'll just talk about shaligrams because one of the things that's been happening recently in my research is I found some papers on the region. So that's cool. So we're going to look at that in this episode. But before then, maybe not starting on this specific shaligram, but Rudraksh Guru has a bunch of shaligrams I've not discussed because they just posted them in the past few days. I think the last one we looked at in any episode was probably here or even further back, but I'll just assume here because I don't think any of these were particularly exciting in their details. They were more like others that I had seen, I guess. Most of these are, I'm just going to click through them. This one for sure, I'm going to talk about it more detail. But my intention is to generally go through these relatively rapidly and just check them out so that we see them. And then maybe check out Etsy, see what's on there. This one I thought was really pretty cool here. Just the ripples. It's kind of backwards too, because like this is the ammonite. I guess it's the rib. The rib is very sharp, kind of tooth-like. That's interesting. It makes me think the helicoprion that we've talked about recently. That if some people don't know what I'm talking about. This. Which is considered to be an extinct shark that was found at coastlines of continents. So maybe I should do a relatively quick recap. Maybe we can even start with Google Earth. Oh my god. Very quick recap. How do I do this? I'm just contemplating how much detail, because a quick recap could take me a half hour or it could take me 10 seconds. Generally, so the what is going on here in the Shaligram Zone and in my work in general is a extension of classical mechanics. Basically, it began in 2014 with observations that were basis of the Big Bang. That I said, I don't really feel this interpretation is sound. I know that gravity can cause redshift. The Big Bang really originated with all distant redshifted galaxies being observed in all directions, according to what is known as Hubble's law. I wonder, is there a way that could be produced by gravity and not have anything to do with the motion that it's associated with, which is basically what happened. Is it was associated with motion because of Hubble's law, which redshift is motion away. But because the laws of physics would break down where things would move faster than the speed of light, when the redshift exceeded a value of 1, z equals 1 means it's traveling the speed of light. So when we find z equals 13, it doesn't really make sense unless we make up some kind of just spontaneously create something to explain this singular observation. It's a group of observations, but it's basically a singular observation composed of many particles, like Earth is composed of atoms, where we're looking at many galaxies, seeing the redshift, but it's basically then plotted on a single graph, because it's essentially a single thing we're seeing, all distant redshifted galaxies based on the distance away, with a function, with a caveat as well. They must be distant galaxies. The nearby galaxies don't adhere to this, which is kind of like a red flag that something's up. But I ended up at some point contemplating a large system in the cosmos. In order for gravity to be able to actually create an increasing redshift per distance correlation, in order for that to happen, it has to be a single object. It can't be like the gravity of the galaxies, because they would all have different masses. So they would all influence the light from them in varying ways dependent on their masses. And thus, they would not yield, no matter what, an increasing redshift per distance correlation that is traceable as we observe. It's kind of rough in that it vibrates and it's not on the line all that well, and then it increases in that it accelerates at large distances, which is then explained away by adding something else. Another observation. We thought that we assumed that this increasing redshift per distance was a actual law that was in the universe. And then we said, we're seeing that this law is, there's some acceleration in the law, which is expansion of space. We just make that up as the cause, and therefore these galaxies are not moving faster than the speed of light. Space is just expanding between, and since we're just making up this completely new thing that has nothing to do with anything in physics, it's just made up, like modern physics as it is developed when classical mechanics at all had no answer to just making up a solution. Expansion of space. Just making shit up. Dark energy. That's just not how it goes. Anyway, but then I thought, one single object doing this, how could that happen? So if there's galaxies, let's just kind of oops. Well, that was there, whatever, I don't care. I know that it even has information, but I don't care. If here's a object and here's galaxies around it, I'm trying to get Shaligrams. Got an Etsy gift card from playing slots because I didn't get enough to cash out cash, so I just said fuck it, I'll get a Shaligram at some point that I can pay for with this. So if here's some object and say here's Earth here in the center, here's the Milky Way, and here's a bunch of galaxies, so here's the Milky Way, and then the light is traveling to Earth, but with this thing present, then the direction of motion of the light would be a function of this thing. Like, it wouldn't yield a like red shift from over here and a red shift from over here. Over here, the light's traveling towards it, so it would be blue shifted. So this would become blue shifted. Whereas these are moving away. This would have a blue shifted portion as it goes to it, and then a red shifted portion past it. So then the collective of it all would be generally like a neutral. Let's say 0 in that one, etc. And let's just assume all of these, like the light can reach Earth from without this thing influencing it, even though I drew it where it maybe would go into it. So this has this issue that, well, many things can't do it, and one thing can't do it, so gravity can't do it. So we can rule out gravity. But the thing is as I drew this, it's kind of poorly representative of maybe more what's happening in my interpretation. It's interesting. I'm noticing, I feel like there's a circle actually in the terrain there involving Kali-Gandaki Valley. But basically, if say here's Earth. Oh my god, this thing. And then, sure. Here is a galaxy, and instead of the light just going to Earth, instead of that, it actually goes literally, because this object is so massive, just like, so everything I say is like based in some evidence. So like the Earth is known to have the capacity to have for neutrinos to pass through the Earth unabated without like hitting atoms and becoming absorbed into the Earth, even though the Earth is composed of many atoms, where it would seem like, how could it get through? Well, they're so subtle that they get through. So it goes here that even though the light goes to it, it's so subtle relative to the object that it passes through it. But then the object has a force of gravity that essentially bends it back. Let's say it bends it back like this, so that it redirects it back towards the center of gravity, and it goes through it, and then generally flows in an orbit, where then at some point in the process, let's say it's like losing energy and flowing inward, it arrives at Earth after not like a single time, but doing this several times. And what happens is that essentially, if we now draw this with any motion towards the center is going to be blue shifted, and any motion away is going to be red shifted. So red, this portion away is red, this portion away is red, and then let's just kind of say away to like take it to out as far as it goes. So like a radial distance outward away that relates to as far as it goes. And then the same over here. and then vice versa, an inflow, and then a radial inflow that is equal and opposite. So these are basically canceling one another. So if light were to be caused to flow in this way relative to some mass that's so massive that it's causing the light from galaxies to flow like this, because that's hypothesized. We don't know that there's nothing after galaxies. Let's say there's atoms, there's planets, there's solar systems, there's galaxies. Let's just hypothesize there's galaxies composed of galaxies as their stars, having an even more massive mass at the center than a supermassive black hole that's on a scale that makes it less common and harder to distinguish, where we might not recognize it right away, such as what's called the Great Attractor, and then things we call superclusters, as these type of larger systems where somewhere down the line there perhaps is a large enough system that our entire observed universe is influenced by it in this way, so that then the critical element is that these are canceling. So everything we've drawn shows zero redshift from this process. But the critical element is it has to go radially from one side to the other. So basically, this motion is always at every point away from the center of gravity as it radially moves on both sides. So it's an additive redshift. And so light can travel with gravity of this object to have increasing redshift. Let's call it Z per distance. Let's just say D. Voila. And so begun a process of a bunch of things that led me to the theory of expanding Earth, and realizing that that's actually the reality and plate tectonics is false, and basically advancing classical mechanics to a point that was, it just made me realize the validity of Isaac Newton's like thought patterns in a way that are, it's hard to fathom someone being so rational and to just waste their life simultaneously. So I researched his other researches into the Bible and so on, and basically realized the expanding Earth and the flood are the same thing. And part of the flood is that it was from geologically when the Earth expanded around the Cambrian, like just pre-541 sometime in that general time frame, to approximately the end of the Younger Dryas, which was all much truncated because it was the flood, and the Earth was basically experiencing a fractal supernova, the process of a supernova, of a star exploding, but for a planet in a way where it was observable in a completely different manner, but is how it's the same process, essentially. The current flows are at play, the same elements repeat themselves over and over and express themselves differently over and over, but the same underlying process can be found. And am a ammonites are one of those things that, upon observing shaligrams, I came to realize are not fossils, but are actually what I call iterative fundamental particles, which is a fractal structure that repeats itself across scales. Of an atom, of an ammonite, of a solar system and a planet, of a galaxy. All these things can be paralleled with ammonites. I mean, there's also differences. I'm not sure that these would be alive in the same way. Maybe that they're like no longer energetically in an environment where they like behave like atoms, so they're just like frozen, even though, because the universe is infinite, larger and smaller, which is essentially what the physics of what I was just describing like leads into. Even though that, or because of that, I guess, I don't know what I was saying, but essentially, because the universe is infinite, at some point down the scale, these things are behaving like fractal universes, where they are the structure that gives flow and current into the subtle layers of like ether particles somewhere down the line that then interact with the shaligrams and, like, just like us, have living beings who live in that universe, who then observe within that universe, because atoms are not like inherently the building block. It's just we're composed of them, so that's what we see as the building block. But the universe is composed of an infinite layer of these. So, like, there are beings who see galaxies as atoms, and they don't realize, or they do, that those things are the same, just different, because they're composed of different things relatively. Then, so that it's a function of what we are composed of, which is like stars, literally. I mean, and galaxies, because they're atoms, which are those things. There is a universe within them too. But this one, it's much more like a framework that is just like holds the flows of the eddies that propagates into really like a living universe through the layers, because of its rigid and solid nature, yet porous, because it was shaped by current flows that shaped the stone, that shaped the eddies that etched the stone, but also created actual porosity on levels that maybe is not like visible to the naked eye. Sometimes not porosity as well, but like both of these things. Okay, so that's Shaligrams. Oh my god, sorry, I'm a little, what's the word? I forgot there's music because I turned it so low. Oh, that's not really music, but that's okay. Got some Tibetan bowls to go along with the start of looking at some shaligrams. So that one was pretty, it had some things, I'm just going to move past it. This one I'm probably going to move past relatively quickly. It definitely has anomalies. Like here, the boundary just goes down. It just isn't really rigidly forming the boundary. It's almost forming the boundary more like a suture pattern. Kind of awesome. Incredible that it's doing that. I really gotta hurry before I get tired. I'm running on empty probably. Get to what I was actually wanting to talk about and just be like, oh. Well, now that I kind of just babbled because of some of the circumstances that apparently made me babble, I wasn't really foreseeing that. Look at the mathematical nature of this. Like, incredible. And not just the ammonite. I was trying to find, Googling, what causes striations in the surface of rocks. Every answer is like glaciers. But I'm like, is that it? Like, there's got, what I'm trying to find, maybe I should just ask people in the group somewhere. What would cause these? What caused these striations on this stone? Show them, pull it up. Instead of that, I'll just pull it up here. Show them, this one. So, what would cause this? Just see if someone would like give me an answer. Maybe not use this image because it's too good. Like, something's up. No one puts this amount of energy into an image so as to just ask a question on a Facebook forum. They must be trying to trick us. This image is perplexing. I don't understand what the actual fuck is going on with this stone. River currents? You want me to believe river currents did this? Oh, well, it tumbled and rotated so that some of the times the current was going this way. Other times the current was going this way, you see? And then, well, it didn't erode here, or it did, and never mind these erosional patterns off of this ammonite over here along this crack area that seems to generally wrap around here. It isn't, like, never mind this other node that has like a flower shape around it and the repeated shapes of the mouth over here and this abrupt boundary. It's definitely, rivers can do some exceptional things. exceptional things when just happenstance, time, erosion, and coincidence are given an opportunity to explain things. They can create a circular pattern around the stone, certainly not eroding the center. It makes perfect sense when they erode sharply into the side, but not the top. But also the top. What the fuck is happening? It's perfectly reasonable for this to go this way, up until this one that goes this way, up until it runs into this one, and then bends from the direction here to go then from like here over to go this way, and then here over to bend and go slightly more, here over bending. Maybe that's a big part of how chambers are, like something going on with chambers with like bending of the current when it's doing like an outer eddy. Bending here, bend, and then back this way, literally flowing into here, across here, into an ammonite shape, like as part of this. The chakras here, the center of the ammonite going up this way, and down this way, just eroding into here, partly because it didn't form an ammonite, it's just eroding the structure kind of, because that's what it's doing over and over again, because there's really intense currents etching these stones. But here it just did some weird thing, and over here some other weird thing, because all the other weird things are going on with the stone, kind of like the weird things going on here. And here's another one. This one I thought was really cool, how small the little teeth are, like common thing to happen to only erode one side. I'm sure modern science is just like broken shell. Broken shell. Some other excuse. But it's only eroding one side is what's happening. This side looks like it influences over there though. This one kind of, it looks like it generally ripples over this way. Okay. Also, it's a more brownish rock. Just maybe if I ever get to it, going to matter with some things we don't look at. Come into play with some things we look at. This one I noticed had that common shape. Maybe this one's worth actually doing this. This common shape. Also like a chakra here. Chakra shape here. And then the more like this shape, I guess. Like chakra, and then like this kind of thing. Where it's eroding around this boundary. But like here, it's even like creating teeth. This one's really defined, where it's almost like rounded. Teeth. So what would that mean? So in this one, the eddy is swirling one or the other way in terms of clockwise, counterclockwise. And commonly is doing so while drilling in, maintaining the general shape, but drilling in and frequently around a chakra type thing. Not quite an ammonite chakra. Well, and by I mean not ammonite chakra, but not quite a. I guess like this. Not quite like one of these kinds of chakras. Whereas this shape is what I meant by that, like when it's facing downward. Like with the tears, the chakra, it's kind of got a relatively solidly formed shape there. And then the boundary has, it's kind of got this, but it also has these like wavering shapes. So it's almost like the eddy when it's doing this is like at some point, if it's creating a chakra here, it's creating like a general shape like this towards the chakra. Let's say like here. I'm just gonna put it inside of where it's doing it though, and then a shape like that. I might have done that pretty terribly. But with the teeth boundaries like this, teeth boundaries, so in this shape, but with teeth boundaries. So then it seems like, so teeth boundaries like here. So if we kind of look at this, we have this section up here, the chakra. So like the chakra, maybe say there. And then we kind of got the teeth. And the general, the bottom chakra, maybe not so much, so like more. Which is, if we go back, interestingly, now that I see this, let's find a good example. I mean, I guess any of them. It'd be nice to find one with a chakra at the top, but the bottom just being like cut across. I guess like this. Like a chakra actually forming at the top. So like where this shape actually starts eroding in and like creating a relief inward of the chakra. Whereas over here, maybe it would just be more like doing something like this initially. So notice even it's got like a chamber, a chamber, maybe a chamber around this way. We talked about this a bunch.